Hello and welcome into the Nittany Gritty, a podcast presented to you by New Amendment. I am your host, Jon Sauber, Penn State football and men's basketball beat writer for the Senate Daily Times, and I am joined by Penn State men's basketball legend Tim Frazier. Tim, how's it going?
What's going on, John, man? Doing all right. How about yourself?
It's been a week. Football season is supposed to end, and I am supposed to not have to focus on football so much, but here we are. We got coaches getting fired, kids committing, transfer portal stuff. I'm sure you wish. I'll say this up front. I think the transfer portal is a good thing, right? Athletes deserve agency and stuff like that. But let's make some decisions and get this thing rolling. Let's get a move on here. I'm sure you would have stayed committed to Penn State though had you had the transfer portal when you were there.
I don't know if I'm a fan of the transfer portal. Listen, I just think
really?
that, I just believe that you make decisions and you got to live up to those decisions. I get it in certain situations where things don't work out and you have to leave. But now I just see hey, I get one little knockdown. I get knocked down once and it's like, you know what? This isn't for me. There is no adversity where guys got to get up and fight through stuff. I remember when my first year at Penn State, I was ready to leave. I was like, oh, man, coach don't like me. I'm not playing, this and this and that. And it ended up being a great decision. I stayed 4 years and, I make a great basketball career out of it, So I'm not a fan of the transfer portal. I'm not. I just think now it's just hey, that's just the easy cop out for everybody. You know what? Let's leave, go to the big name schools, and then from there come back. We leave and go back home to the school that was by our parents' house,
Well, listen, I'll say that the biggest advantage to me is coaches can leave whenever they want, right? They get that kind of option. Players should have that option too, right? That is the importance of it. I tend to agree with you, right? I don't necessarily think it's a good thing to leave at the first sign of trouble. I think that's its own separate issue. But I also think a lot of the guys who do that, coaches vet that before they take them. So those guys maybe tend to have a harder time finding that next school because they know they just had a little bit of adversity and bailed, right? It's not necessarily for the best reasons. And sometimes listen, guys play at one level, realize they're not good enough to play at that level, got to drop down, right? So you can play and do what you want to do. So I get it. I understand, I'm with you on the leaving at the first sign of adversity, but you mentioned your career and I actually heard a story that I wanted to mention to you.
Oh man.
Do you remember your flight home from the 2011 NCAA tournament?
Flight back to Penn State or flight back to...
The flight back to Penn State when you were on the runway for a while because some people in the band had a little too much going on and suddenly there were a little too many people out there on the tarmac waiting for everybody.
I kind of hear that. I kind of remember that a little bit. We were sitting there waiting. We couldn't get off the plane for a while because somebody was on there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was. I don't know if maybe you don't know the full story here. Evidently, and this is from some people who were on that flight who, because back then they used to take reporters and everything.
Yeah.
Because it was a trip to Tucson, which the NCAA did you guys dirty with that one. But that's a story for another day. But you guys get back and there was a band member who drank too much because the flight left earlier than everyone anticipated. And so they had a panic attack on the way down. And so they had the cops waiting for you. It's 5 a.m, whatever it was. Yeah, listen, I'm kind of glad for you that you don't fully remember this story because from the people that were awake at 5 a.m, it sounded like a nightmare.
Yeah, it was a nightmare for me because I hate to relive this, but people always say, I had the Juan Fernandez for Temple hit the game-winning shot on me for us to lose.
Yeah.
So I was kind of hey, man, let's just get home. I kind of had my head down the road, but that's probably why I didn't get the full story about that, man. I was trying to make sure I get away from everybody because I know I felt like I had eyes looking at me the whole flight home.
Well, on the bright side, I think the eyes were looking elsewhere once you guys landed. I don't think that was too much of an issue once everyone realized what was going on there.
Right.
But let's talk about this year's team, right? Because we talk about 2011. That's the last time Penn State made the NCAA tournament, and it kind of looks like this year might break that streak. So let's get into the X's and O's of what happened in the team's last game against Wisconsin. A loss for Penn State, 63-60 on the road at the Kohl Center, which I guess I wasn't that surprised to hear that Penn State has never won at the Kohl Center, right? The last time Penn State has won in Wisconsin in general, in Madison, I think 8 months old or something like that in 1995. So it's been a while, and Penn State had a chance in this game. I mean, it's, in case it isn't obvious by the 3-point loss, and did what they've done a few times this year, right? Up at the half, blow it again. Like, are you seeing anything out of these halftimes that is causing this? Because once it was like a 10-2 run for Wisconsin that did Penn State in this time, right out of halftime.
That's the trend. If you look at all the losses, especially the losses in the Big Ten, they get up, they start well, get up, like you said, and then for the first half, and then the second half, they kind of just start slow. I don't know if it was whatever they need to do, they need to change, because that 10-2 run by Wisconsin hurt them. You know, man, it gave them more juice. And when you play Wisconsin, it's very, in the gym, it's very cold, it's very slow. It's not very loud and crazy as you would think when you go to other teams, venues. But so you need to stay on top and continue to be above them as far as the scoring goes. And then when you get down, it's hard to get back up on top, because the way they play the game is slow the ball down. Everything's real slow. And again, I keep mentioning how freezing cold it is when you play there. Like, it's just literally just freezing cold. And it really is a shame that we keep talking about this every week after the loss, is that, hey, man, they started slow in the second half. Usually we either talking about, hey, we need a big man, or, hey, the team is slow. And right, there's no big man coming. You know, right now, there's no experienced big man coming. So the only thing that we really need to focus on and really need to change is starting the second half with better spirit, better intensity, whatever it needs to be done. I don't know what they need to do in halftime. They need to do jumping jacks or get out earlier, get layups more going fast enough. You know, it's little stuff like that that's going to be needed, because if they want to flip this thing around and take off where we believe that this team can take off, they have to get that going in the second half.
Yeah, and like, they still need to make up for a home loss, right, in conference. Right. Again, we talk about 10-10 in the Big Ten's the goal. That Purdue game's a home game, right, and you lost that one, so you're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit there. And to me, this was the chance, right? Like, this was a big time opportunity to go into Wisconsin, do something the program hasn't done, and winning at the Kohl Center, and like, it just, I don't know. Watching it, it felt like coming out of halftime, it was very much a here we go again type thing, right? Because it was a 6-point lead at halftime, and then suddenly it's 40-38, and like, it was like, well, yeah, this is about how this is going to end. And I don't think they ever regained the lead from that point either. Like you said, like, once Wisconsin gets on you, like, you can claw back in, but it's really tough to overtake them again, because they are trying to slow the game down, because they want the pace to be slower. So they put themselves in a really difficult situation. And like, you even look at the numbers, like, nothing stands out as that bad, right? Like, they were 8 of 20 from 3. That's 40%. Like, that's great. You only took 20. Team wants to shoot like 28-30. But still, 20 is fine. Like, it's not the end of the world. I think the 10 turnovers were a little bit of a problem, but again, the team averages around 9, so it's not like it was that big of a deviation. So it was just that little stretch, right? You come out of halftime and suddenly you can't make anything, and it's weird because this team is old, right? Like, it's a bunch of seniors, it's a bunch of juniors, it's a bunch of guys that are playing a ton of college basketball. Yeah, and like, I don't know that I've ever seen a team that experienced come out that slow out of halftime over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it, man. You don't expect that from juniors and seniors, man. Those guys got to come up right away and be locked in, excited, and understand what they're facing. This is not a non-conference. This is not the second game in the season. This is conference play against Wisconsin on the road after just, you know, losing the game to Purdue. You know, we got to get back on track. We got to get back onto our winning ways, and we have to be able to do. Or they just want to beat Indiana, but I'm saying they just have to get back on track to the things that we know. We can't just keep going 1-1, topsy-turvy, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. We have to string streaks, and that's what great teams do. They're able to win streaks. Like, you think about right now, like the Memphis Grizzlies won 11 games in a row. Boston Celtics has won 7 games in a row. You know, these teams that are at the top of the mountains that everybody's chasing, these guys are the ones that put streaks together. And right now, Penn State, we can't. I say we because I think about myself even when I was playing there. We can't put streaks together. I think, you know, I would love to know this stat. What's the longest streak of Penn State in conference play wins? You know what I mean? I'm sure it can't be more than 2 or 3 in a very, very long time. And in order for this team, we keep saying, in order for this team to be great and achieve the goals that they want to achieve, they have to start better in the second half. And like you said, it's either rebounds or start the second half better. And when you look at the rebounds, they were even 32-32. You know, in the game. So, it's not the rebounding here. It was the slow start. Wisconsin ran their game plan. And from there, we get a chance to win it at the end. Once again, you get one of those calls, the Penn State basketball call that you get, but can go either way and usually goes the other way. But at the end of the day, you can't put yourself in that position. And, going into the game, especially on the road, it's going to be tough for us to get the call when we really need to get the call. And to put yourself in that position hurts, and it sucks.
Yeah, and listen, the call you're talking about, of course, is Chucky Hepburn comes over, draws a charge on Jalen Pickett where Hepburn was late, kind of only made contact with Hepburn's shoulder while Hepburn was leaning forward. Like, listen, I don't know many arenas where that is going to be a charge. Even if you were Penn State playing on the road, right? Like, I saw that call and, like, I talked to some people around the program and everything. They're like, no, it was a good call. I'm like, listen, I understand what you're saying. I disagree, right? Like, to me, that is, that's a play on. Like, it's not a block. It's not he came over late. If anything, it should be a block, right? Because he came over late, yes. And you don't want, you don't want to reward guys for coming over late, because then you get situations where you guys get undercut, guys get hurt. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that needs to be out of basketball in general. Like, I hate charges in general too, because it rewards that stuff.
Yeah, and I thought he did a good job of trying to miss him. Usually when you think about charges, like, hey, yes. He couldn't miss him. He literally just ran straight over him. But for here, I think he did a good job of jumping to the side and trying to miss him. My thing is, like you said, I think if anything, it's a block. But if you don't know and you're not sure, I'd say no call. And my thing is, at the end of the game, for that type of environment, at the end of the game, you let that be a play on, and let Pickett be the player that he is and have to score that to win the game, or put the team back, put the team up one. So, like, again.
Yeah, and like, it's one of those situations where Pickett is playing at such a high level, too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm not, like, a big-time superstar calls guy, but they get them, right? Like, the best players get them. Zach Edey gets his fair share of calls. Mm-hmm. And listen, like, Pickett's one of the best players in the Big Ten, right? He's on pace right now, for my money, to be an All-American. Like, he has been one of the best players in the country, one of the best guards in the country, the best guard in the Big Ten. And, like, you're not going to give him that, right? And like you said, he mostly got out of the way. Like, he grazed Hepburn's shoulder when Hepburn was, like, leaning in a little. And Pickett had already gathered by the time that, Hepburn got over there. And it was one of those things where the rebound, by the way, comes right to Pickett. Like, he's getting that ball back and he's putting it up. It's probably a layup, and they probably take the lead. But at the end of the day, that's not the only reason they lost. Like we talked about, losing the halftime lead. I thought Seth Lundy kind of had... This might have been one of his worst games of the year. Like, it just didn't feel like he was there, right? And as your second leading scorer, like, you kind of can't have that. A guy that shoots as much as he does to shoot 1-3, to have a couple bad turnovers. He hit Miles Dredd in a pick and roll when Dredd was rolling to the rim, and Miles good at a lot of things. I would not be hitting him on the move, inside the arc for trying to get a layup on a roll. And so, like, it was one of those things where it's like, man, you can tell he doesn't have it, and so they kind of had to make up for that. At the end though, they get two good looks for Andrew Funk, and like sometimes they just don't fall. Some of that was like the mastery of Micah Shrewsbury after a timeout, right? They run the Pickett post up on the weak side, and they run that cycle screen at the top of the key, right at the nail, basically until Funk came free and gets an open three, and it just doesn't fall. And he's a great shooter. He shot 38% in the game, but I think this is one that, like, in the long run, they could be kicking themselves for, because this was a chance to make up for that loss at home.
Yeah, of course. They got to be upset knowing that, hey, man, we had a tremendous shot of taking a game on the road. And, and the Big Ten is so tough from top to bottom and win games on the road. And you had this opportunity. I believe Penn State is the better team. That's obviously it might be a little biased, but I believe they're a better team when you look at from their best players to Wisconsin's best players when it came down to it. But again, what you said about Lundy having one of his worst games, I feel like that's another trending topic that we keep going against. If it's not Lundy, it's Funk, it's Winter. One of those guys never not stepping up or having bad games. Where we look at him as like, hey, he wasn't there, he didn't have it today, or he couldn't make a shot, or both those guys, or even when Dredd, him and Funk couldn't make threes in one of those games as well. Like we need to find that second guy that's going to be consistent as much as Pickett is going to be. We need those two guys, those seniors, to be able to be consistent throughout the game. We don't need them to score 20 points a game or have or shoot the lights out how they did against Indiana with the 7 threes each. We don't need them to do that, but we need them to be consistent enough to where they are able to help and take some of that pressure off Pickett and relieve some of themselves. Like, we look at they're playing 40 minutes for Pickett, 38 for Funk, 24 for Winter, 22 for Lundy, 30 for Dredd. We looking at the list. We only playing 8 guys, and we need a balanced scoring and a balanced help throughout the whole team for this team to be successful, because eventually, like, the Big Ten season is a long way, and you're going against a lot of different teams, a lot of guys banging against you, and we need to be able to be the best we can be when we talk about tournament time.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 22 minutes for Lundy. Like, part of that was a little bit of foul trouble, but part of it was like, I think Shrewsbury saw that he just kind of didn't have it, right? And like, when you're not helping the team, right, when you're not furthering the cause, like, you kind of have to, sit the bench, right? Like, and credit to Shrewsbury for like benching a guy that's ostensibly, right, their second best player, and he sat him for an extended stretch because he could tell he didn't have it. And it's good wherewithal, but at the end of the day, like, they got to have more depth, like you said. They got to have more guys step up. But the biggest thing is, again, don't let this turn into the next one, because this has happened in the past with Penn State basketball. You know it, I know it, right? Like, you lose one, does it become 2? Does it become 3? And so now, like, let's look at the scouting report. Let's look ahead, because what comes next is important. It is a chance to rebound against a Nebraska team that, listen, if you had to pick teams to play in the Big Ten, like, there aren't many that you want to play, but Nebraska is like, it's all right. That being said, Nebraska last night, we're recording here Thursday afternoon, beat Ohio State, which is like, and usually for Penn State, the team loses, so then they're motivated coming in. So I'm sure this will be a welcome sight for Penn State that's not the case. Yeah. But still, like, that's a good Ohio State team, and Nebraska beat them. This is not exactly a walk in the park game where, you can be like, oh, okay, we got Nebraska at home, we're good. It's a 2:15, it's a Saturday. Like, there are other factors at play here too. Like, and Penn State needs to be careful, because Nebraska is, they play similarly to Penn State. They try and shoot from deep. They try and generate high efficiency shots from deep and at the rim. And like, they're not coming in to roll over. I'll tell you that much.
No, of course not. First off, Nebraska is probably the longest travel in the Big Ten from Penn State, so they're coming for a long ways away. And I know they're not coming on that plane and saying, hey, you know what, let's just compete tonight. They just went in and beat Ohio State.
A little vacation in State College.
Yeah, no ways, right? I think that game was at Ohio State that they won, correct? Or no, am I wrong? John? It was at Ohio State they won, or it was in Nebraska?
That was at home. That was at home. It was in Nebraska, but still, like, that is 3 days turnaround heading to Happy Valley.
Yeah, man, they're coming off feeling good about themselves. They're coming all the way to Happy Valley. They just saw that we just lost to Wisconsin as well. So, man, they're coming in feeling good. They think they can get another one and start a streak. The same thing that Penn State is thinking when they're coming off of one game just before they went to Wisconsin. So, and this, like you said, so many factors play into this. It's early game, Saturday game. Everybody's, no school, whatever your excuse might be. We have to get up early, this and that for the game. Might not be as many fans. Who knows? But you have to leave all those excuses at the door. You understand what your end goal is, and I can continue to say that the end goal for this team is to make the tournament, be the best team they can be. And for that, they have to leave all the excuses at the door. Hey, we banged up. Hey, I didn't shoot the ball well. Hey, we didn't get a lot of rest. Hey, I had a test here. I had some homework. Got a paper due here. All that stuff means nothing. Once you step inside the locker room and you sit there with your brothers and you get ready for that game, it's time to play. And right now, you got your next opponent is Nebraska. They just came from a win. Now you got to put them in a losing category, and you got to take care of home. And that's the main thing. If we talking about splitting 10-10 in the Big Ten, you have to try to take care of home right now. And you can't lose games that you're not supposed to lose. And you look at this on paper. This paper says Penn State's supposed to win this game.
Yeah, and like you said, 2:15 is not easy on a Saturday. I can attest to that as someone who took a look at the time for the game on Saturday and is like, man, there are going to be multiple. I think I've said it before on here. I am a night owl, right? Like, I sleep until noon most of the time, which is even more impressive for me that I wake up at noon to do this. I'm very proud of myself for that. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I got to set some alarms. Like, I got to make sure I'm good to go. And it's like, I don't have to do anything. I got to go sit in press row and like get on my laptop and write a story. Like, I don't have to do physical activity. So I don't envy these guys for having to play right at those earlier games. They don't seem fun. But you're right. Like, it's still, who else to play at that time? Nebraska, right? Like, it's not just Penn State that has to get up early, and they have to travel in from Lincoln. So like, this is everything is an advantage sort of for Penn State heading into this game. they should not lose this game. Like this is, and the last time they played, by the way, in the Bryce Jordan Center, Nebraska blew out Penn State last season. I remember very emotional game for John Harrah. Like he really did not want to lose that game. It was his last game at the BJC, I believe. And like, it was a tough loss. And Micah brings that up in at every press conference, right? Like where it's like, hey, everyone overlooks them. But the last time they came in here, he always says it did not look good for the Nittany Lions, right? And so it is not a matchup that they should be overlooking. That being said, like, it is tough to find an advantage for Nebraska heading into this, right? Like,
No.
I don't know. You look at them like Sam Griesel was supposed to be good for North Dakota, coming out of North Dakota State. He's their second leading scorer, but he's not been really efficient this year. He's not making free throws. He's not shooting threes. He's mostly trying to operate in the mid range and in. He's a 6'7" guard, but like, I mean, that's the kind of guy you just put Lundy on and you're good with it, right? You give up these inefficient shots that you want him taking, and he may want to take them, but like they're not great looks for Nebraska. So like you pour over this one, and man, this will be a brutal loss. If this would be the kind of loss that if they lose this game, it makes me reevaluate maybe what I thought the team was going to be and where I thought they could go.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm gonna try not to keep speaking that in the air, and I'm gonna say, hey, Penn State's gonna take care of business, because they are. I think a credit to that is to Coach. I think Coach has, we speak about him, even how great he is as a person last segment. But I think he'll have these guys ready. I think he's gonna jump on them. He's gonna let them know, like, hey man, we dropped the ball, and I think there's gonna be some tough practices these next 2 days getting ready for this game, and it has to be, because I think he understands what the goal is. I know the players understand what the goal is, but do they know what it takes to really understand what they can't drop and what the games that they must win? And this is a must-win game for the season. I hate to say it so early, but it's a must-win game for the season, and they have to win this game and get ready for the next one.
Yeah, and the next one is not easy, right? They're going. I think it's Jersey Mike's Arena now. I always call it the Rack, but like Rutgers like sucks to play at. It is not a fun arena for opponents. Teams have a bad time there. And listen, Rutgers is good. Like they're legitimately good. They're ranked 23rd right now, 13-5 on the season. Cliff Omorori, apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly. I think I got it, but like he was a 5-star recruit out of high school, right? Like he's a big, athletic, big man that can give them trouble, especially as a rim runner. They don't have the rim protection that you'd want to protect in the pick and roll. This is like, that is, we talk about like games that you can get on the road. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. 1-1 feels like a win over these next 2 games for Penn State, because like that Rutgers game is not going to be easy. Teams just don't go into there and beat them. And like, I don't know if Penn State is the matchup that necessarily scares Rutgers heading into that game.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Again, we talk about going on the road, and playing in Rutgers is not. I think when I was there, my last year was the first year Rutgers was in. I don't even think I got to go there. But I've seen Rutgers visited being there as well, how tough it is and how tight it is in there. And nobody thought Rutgers was going to be this team. They've knocked off 2 top 25 teams, like, and it's just a feeling of they're feeling themselves and they're feeling good. They're top 25. I think this is the first week they're top 25 right now. So you have to bring your A game. They're feeling themselves, and they're at home. I don't know who they have before they have us, but you got to come in. You got to take care of business on Saturday. And then from there, continue, like I said earlier, we have to start pulling on some streaks of games, of W's. And this is another great test. You go to Rutgers, you win that game in Rutgers, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to come down to the end, like one or 2 possessions of what you can, of what is going to happen to determine that game. So you need to start well, which Penn State normally does, is start well. You need to start the second half well, and then from there finish the game. It's a 3-point thing. It's a 3 stages. Start the game well, start the second half well, and finish the game. Man, it's easier said than done, but I think it's capable. I think these guys are capable. That coach is going to have them capable and ready to be able to do that. But it will be a tough game to win. But I think it's possible because they went on the road and they won tough games already before.
And when you can make as many shots from deep as Penn State can, you're kind of never going to be out of it.
Right.
It's just not one that I'm pegging as a win right now, right? Like, and the thing with Rutgers is, so Cam Spencer, transfer from Loyola, Maryland, will light teams up from deep. He, like a bunch of Penn State players, will just start gunning from deep. And will make a bunch of threes and sort of put you out of it early. But like you said, though, they have like some really impressive wins. They go on the road against Northwestern. They beat Purdue on the road. Like they were Purdue's first loss, I believe, this season.
Yes,
on the road. They went into Mackey and beat Purdue. Yeah, and it's crazy, right? Like teams just don't do that. And like for that to happen is, I mean, it says a lot about the way the program is run currently and the momentum they have. They just got a commitment from a 2024 5-star recruit too. So it's like things are rolling in Rutgers in a way that I'm not going to lie. I did not anticipate. Steve Peichel like is a great coach, but it is, the way things are going is not a way I thought they would go. But like you said, like they're going to have a chance. They need to make those shots though. It's all going to come down to shooting from deep. But that's been the story of this Penn State season, and I think that's a good place to take us to the word on campus here. We're kind of at the midpoint, right? Like, and we're getting close to the midpoint of Big Ten play, and I think this is a good chance to reevaluate maybe what we thought heading into the season. I know we both thought they would make the tourney. I think we both said that they would be on the fringes of it, but this was like the chance to eclipse that if they could get things going in a positive direction. I said earlier, like, I still think that's the case. Do you still think this is a tourney team?
Yes, I believe so. I think just in the star that you have in Pickett. Well, let's first and foremost, I think yes, because of the coach you have. You have, in Shrewsbury, and we keep saying the type of person he is, and the coaching and the X and O's that he has, and how much he can get this team rolling, and how much confidence he's giving those guys. I think you have a star in Pickett. Like you said, maybe All-American. Rebound, assist, score. He does it all. You have shooters that, knock down threes. And I think the only weakness you look at is, coming out of the second halves and rebounding. I just think that this team has to be able to put it together. And again, we're talking like, I think I've been hard on them. I think we kind of starting to feel hard on them because of the losses. But at the end of the day, it's the Big Ten. And that's what the Big Ten is all about. Literally, Big Ten beats up on each other all year long. Until the end, and until they get into the tournament, and then we get 6 to 8 teams in, and that's just how it goes. And I think Penn State is going to be one of those teams. They just have to be able to withstand these punches and these losses that they have, and give out and make some wins. You know what I mean? You get knocked down, you have to be able to knock guys down too. And that's exactly what this is going to be. It's going to be like, how many times are you going to get knocked down? How many times are you going to stand up? Because you and I both said that we weren't going to go undefeated. It's going to be tough. And we've seen some of these losses, and we're slapping ourselves like, man, I can't believe we lost that game, or we shouldn't have lost that game. I know the guys are doing it. But at the end of the day, they're cheering like, hey, we just beat Illinois on the road. The same way. Like in Illinois saying, hey, we shouldn't have lost that game. Like we talk about the Rutgers team as well, about how they won these games. I know they're sitting there saying, hey, I can't believe we lost to Iowa at home. And Penn State beat Iowa. So it goes around like this. It just we're just knocking each other down. Big Ten, it's just a dogfight every night. But I still believe this team is a tournament team. I think they have the pieces to be a tournament team. It's just things have to start going in an upper direction right now. I feel like, again, we're right here, still even. We're still even as if we just started the Big Ten, and it's time for us to start trending upwards and up on the hill.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. And I think the biggest thing that's going to indicate whether or not they can take that upward trajectory is what happens with some of these freshmen. Kebajai hasn't been great as a 5. He's been, and listen, I know, like, you go on like the message boards, which are like their own thing. And like there are people that are heavily critical of Kebajai. He is 18. Look at the 18-year-old centers around the country. 5-star recruit Derek Lively is not playing all that well for Duke, right? Bellefonte native Derek Lively at that. But like, it is not easy to play that position, and it's really not easy to do it as an 18-year-old. He turned 18, I think, in August or September too. So it's not like he is actually like very much could be in high school right now. And like it is. He's 19, sorry, I believe. But either way, like this is a young kid playing the 5 in the Big Ten. It's not fun. He's not having a good time with some of these guys, right? Like Zach Edey and Hunter Dickinson aren't easy to deal with. And I think he's doing a commendable job but I don't think he is the freshman that changes things, right? I think that's Evan Mahaffey. And we've seen more of Evan Mahaffey of late. He played his career high in minutes in this past game. I think it was 21. But either way, like you're seeing that uptick. And man, the energy he brings on defense, the energy he brings on offense, the help he brings on the glass on both ends of the court. He's an excellent passer. He basically was the lead ball handler in high school at 6'7", which is not easy to do as a high school kid. He's not a great shooter. He takes a while to take a shot, but when he has his feet set and he has some time, he can probably shoot like 36% right now. He made a three against Indiana with his feet set, and the entire bench went nuts. It was very funny to watch. But like he is the guy to me moving forward that if his role increases and he continues to adjust to the Big Ten and continues to play well, he can be the X factor. He can be the one that determines how good the team can be moving forward. I know that's a lot to put on a freshman. I'm not saying he's the best player. I actually do kind of think he is their third best player right now. But if he keeps bringing that energy and bringing that juice, and maybe the solution, by the way, at a halftime is having Evan on the court, right? Like it's having him there to like put a stop to things, because he's one of those defenders that kind of just puts fires out everywhere. He reminds me of D'Anthony Melton, current Sixer, former Grizzly, former USC Trojan, who just like it feels like he's everywhere, right? And like it just feels like it's sort of like an octopus. He just has his tentacles on everything. He gets his hands on everything. He's making things difficult. And if there's a step forward to be taken in season, like, listen, there's a case to be made that he should be starting in general, but I think at the very least he should be, someone that gets looked at to start those second halves at this point.
You hit it right on the head. I think that's one of the biggest things as a freshman is when you're in situations where you're playing with a lot of seniors, a lot of juniors, and very experienced guys, is you have to find your role, find your niche to be able to get on the court. And his niche right now is hustle. It's not necessarily, hey, he's in, like you said, it takes him a time to knock down a shooter. He's not strapping the guy, full court. He's not making the best assists. But one of the things he's gonna do, he's just hustling. He's just gonna hustle on offense, hustle on defense, and that's gonna get him on the court. And I think that's something that is gonna be needed, in the long run. And as you can see, his minutes are starting to grow. I mean, his coaches are starting to feel more trust in him. And I think those trust is gonna pay off. And it's going to be needed, but at the same time, I know, just being as when I was a freshman, about how necessarily sometimes the coach might trust in you, but he's going to roll with his guys. And right now, you see the guys that coach is rolling with. He's rolling with those 8 guys and 7 guys, really 6 maybe. He's rolling with those guys. But to be able to just get a couple of little tidbits here and there, be able to help the team is going to go a long ways. And props to that kid, man. You got to keep doing what he's doing, trying to affect the game in many ways, how many minutes he gets.
Yeah, and to his credit, pretty much double-digit minutes since conference play started. Quinnipiac and Delaware State, or like whatever games, he didn't play double-digit minutes then. But since early conference play, right, he only played 8, I think, against Michigan State, but it's been double-digit since. Cracked 20 for the first time. Like, I know they were really high on Mahaffey out of high school, and like for good reason, right? You can see it, and you mentioned the hustle. And like you're right in that like the passes aren't always there, and he's not always strapping a guy up full court. But like sometimes he can't, right? Because he's so long and he's so athletic. He's a little thin, which is not an in-season fix. But like that's fine as long as you're active and you're disruptive. I think they've kind of been playing him as their backup 5 essentially, and that works if you're trying to play small, and if the purpose of the 5 is less Brook Lopez and more Giannis, right? And to be clear, not a 1-to-1 comparison. He's not Giannis. But like that style of like hyperactivity, like being long, being in passing lanes, being disruptive, I think that can really work in the college game, especially in the Big Ten where things are a little slow, things are a little plodding. And so if you bring some juice, you bring your own energy, like you're going to have a chance to be super disruptive. And, to me, that's the guy you point to, like the rest of the year. Like, all right, if this is a go, like if this is where things change, it's because of him. I think it's because of what he can do at the end of the year. It's on the main guys too, to be clear, like Lundy, Pickett, all those guys. But I think Mahaffey is going to have like a pretty enormous impact one way or another. And listen, people don't need to like heap blame on him if things don't go well, because I know there's a tendency to do that. He is a freshman after all, but I do think he's good enough to change things in a positive direction. And like you said, like they need that uptick. It doesn't even have to be like 4 or 5 in a row. They need like 2 or 3 in a row, just like one time.
Yeah. That's all you need. And for him, players feed off it. You know what I mean? Players feed off the energy. Players feed off the hustle, and even coaches do. When they seeing a player diving around, making plays, and doing all the little dirty work, coaches see that and they love it, and it starts to feed them into them. They're telling guys to get up, pick it up. Their play calls actually change. I've seen it, and in my own eyes, and be like, hey, we haven't ran that in a while, but now we're running it because the juice of the game has changed. The flow of the game, he's changed the game as far as he got the guys going up and down. Guys are hitting threes now, and now everybody's celebrating. And then one of the biggest things you want to do, especially when we talk about on the road, is to make the other team call a timeout. And hustle plays make other teams call timeout. So again, his role is going to start getting bigger, which I'm hoping for. I think, and that means he's playing well. He's helping the team, and hopefully, it'll turn into help out with some wins and making other teams call timeout.
Yeah, and I gotta imagine there's nothing better than silencing an away crowd, right? And he's the kind of guy who makes those hustle plays that, like, those big transition dunks. He's already had a few, like, especially off of offensive rebounds. He gets those putbacks, so he's gonna drive energy one way or another, and he's gonna dictate a lot. And it's a lot to put on a freshman, but I think at this point he can handle it. I think that's probably a good place to leave it though today. I covered a lot of ground here. I am. Like, I'm curious, man. They have a chance to be different, but we'll see if they can actually do it. This is like kind of this is the time where the change has to happen, or the switch has to flip, so to speak. But if you enjoyed this podcast, you can find it on YouTube at Beyond Big Ten on video. You can find it anywhere you find podcasts: Apple Pods, Spotify, Amazon, you name it. It's probably there. You can find Tim on Twitter at TimFraze23. You can find me on Twitter at Jon Sauber, and all my writing at centerdaily.com. You can find the podcast on all of the social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at Beyond the Big Ten. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.
Beyond the Big Ten is a network of podcasts that aims to be your go-to resource for all things Big Ten. We cover the entire conference with shows hosted by ex-players and athletic alumni, aiming to be your go-to source of information and entertainment for your favorite team. Hosted by ex-Big Ten players, media, and insiders, our podcasts are focused on giving diehard fans and those alums an inside scoop about the teams and people that make the Big Ten Conference one of the most watched and most talked about conferences in sports. We're excited to talk Big Ten basketball with you wherever you may be. Subscribe now.